Hello, good evening, everyone. You're all being let into our webinar now, and we'll just give this a moment for everyone to get logged in and settled before we begin tonight's presentation. We are recording tonight's webinar, so it will be available for you to re-listen at a later time, and we'll also be sharing it with people who weren't able to attend tonight. We're going to go ahead and get started. I am Kristen Burke. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Camden County, and I'm joined tonight by our esteemed guests from the Camden County Board of Elections. We have Novella Starks-Hinson and John Custodio. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to read a little bit about each of you before we jump into tonight's program. So Novella has over 30 years of experience in the city of Camden as a certified public manager and certified recycling coordinator of the state of New Jersey. Successful proven ability in all functions of public administration, policy, and planning. And she has, among her accomplishments, directed and initiated comprehensive safe haven after school programs for youth and young adults that were age appropriate in the city of Camden. Secured in excess of $5 million of funding from federal and state open space park funds. And the list goes on and on with your accomplishments. So I don't have time to read them all, but we're so
I'm
happy
hiding under the
Novella.
table. I'm embarrassed.
Accept the praise. Okay, and Commissioner John Custodio is the newest Republican commissioner on the Camden County Board of Elections, having been appointed in October 2018 to fill an unexpired term and then was reappointed in March 2019. Mr. Custodio retired after 30 years as Director of Government Affairs from the Bank of America. In 2010, Mr. Custodio was appointed as Deputy Executive Director of the New Jersey Lottery by Governor Christie and served until the change in administrations in 2018. A former board member of the Gloucester Township Board of Education and the Black Horse Pike Regional Board of Education, Commissioner Custodio has had hands-on experience running for office. Committed to fair and transparent elections, Mr. Custodio welcomes input from the Camden County League of Women Voters. And I mentioned there, so Commissioner Custodio is one of the Republican commissioners, and Commissioner Starks-Hinson is one of the Democrat commissioners on the Board of Elections. We're also joined, I can see in our attendee list, by the chair of the Board of Elections, Donna Robinson-Taylor, who spoke along with fellow commissioner, the fourth commissioner, Rich Ambrosino, at our June-July webinar before the primary. So now that I've said a couple words there about the Board of Elections, if you could get us started by just giving our audience, who are mostly probably familiar with the board, but just give us a couple sentences summarizing how the board is structured and how you work together, and just a brief bit about that before we jump in.
Well, thank you. Go ahead, John.
No, I was just going to say
go
I will yield to my senior partner, and she can start, and then I'll jump in.
We are an equal Democrat and Republican board. The commissioners are 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. We also, same thing with our staff, is equal with Democrat and Republican staff, and also with temps. That's the same for that. We also, last sentence, think we have among the best commissioners around and set a good example for what we try to do, and we coordinate and work well together. And the leadership of the board, as you said before, is under Donna Marie Robinson-Taylor and Rich Ambrosino.
And I see Rich is on too. Sorry, Rich, I didn't see your name in the list before, but so Rich and Donna are both on.
And so, Kristen, thanks to you and the league for
Yes.
having myself and my colleague tonight, and also Anita, who extended that invitation. We're always very happy to be here. It's difficult to follow in the former presentations of our chairwoman, Donna Robinson-Taylor, and our commissioner and chairman of registration, commissioner of registration, Rich Ambrosino. They do a great job. So we're very happy to be here, but hope we can come up to the standards that they've set before. I think the commissioner really put it in a nutshell that we take as a high priority at the Camden County Board of Elections our role in a bipartisan manner. Everything that we do in our office is structured around a Republican-Democrat format, where everything is done to prevent any type of thinking that there's something going on over at the Board of Elections. We take great pride in that. And you know, every time someone says, well, it's all corrupt, I can say from my experience in our office, that's the furthest thing from the truth. And that should be good news to the your members and to the public, because we take it very seriously. The commissioners, especially this time of year, are pretty much on site almost every day during the week. We pop in to see that things are being run. We give our advice. We also meet with our senior staff. It's a very good working relationship and one that we're very proud of.
Excellent. Thank you so much for giving us that background. I think it is important for us and for the public to understand that this is a bipartisan effort, and there are those checks and balances, and there is, especially with this group, as you described, a partnership. So it's not competing checks and balances. Seems like a more collaborative effort together. So I think that can be one small thing, perhaps, that can reassure some of the voting public about the process. And speaking of the process, one thing that, again, a lot of our viewers tonight are probably quite familiar with, but it would be good to do a quick review of the ballot journey from when it arrives into the Board of Elections. And if you could specifically focus on anything that may be new or different from the primary. And if you could talk a little bit too, it will naturally kind of come out, the volume that you're dealing with, since this is sort of an unprecedented situation. New Jersey, in our county particularly, has a long track record of a decent vote by mail contingency, and we are among the largest counties in the past. But again, this being an unprecedented time with everyone getting a mail-in ballot. So what's that ballot journey like from when it first is picked up by someone in the Board of Elections?
Okay, Commissioner, I'll take that.
Yes, but I'd like to say that what I think we had over 400,000 BBM, vote by mail, that were mailed out in Camden County. So it's close to 500,000. I know it's in excess of 400,000. And Commissioner Custodio could take it from here.
Okay.
On the ballot journey.
So we're really just talking about once the ballot reaches the Camden County Board of Elections.
Yes.
We have an intake process. So every day, either via mail or via lockbox, the ballots arrive in our office. And also, if someone hand delivered, they can hand deliver their ballots to our office as well. All of those ballots are then put together, taken down into our vault area, and begins the process. They are stamped on their arrival. They are scanned into the system so that those who are tracking their ballots can actually see this journey. They are brought in. There is always a Republican and a Democrat with those ballots at all time. And they move through the process where they are opened, they're stamped, they're scanned in, they're separated, they are put back into the vault, because all the ballots that come in have to be processed, and then they have to be locked up because they cannot be, the ballots cannot be opened until October 24th. We'll talk about that a little later. That is something new, and I'll get to that in just a minute, that we could talk about that.
Right now, at this first step, you're saying it's separated, like the tear off the certificate flap, or no?
No.
Just the green envelope that comes in the mail, that, because we keep those envelopes, we keep everything. So we keep that, it's scanned through the window, then they are separated. They're put in one place, the green envelopes go into a box for storage. All of that process happens, some of it simultaneously, okay? Then with lockbox, every day the lockboxes are emptied. In fact, I can say that because we have 13 this election, where we had 5, we tried it out in the primary, we only had 5. I can tell you that even the commissioners actually went out and picked up these ballots. So we take it very seriously, the chain of custody of these ballots. And so we actually had gone out. When those ballots come in, they go through the same exact process. They are recorded, They are logged in from the ballot box that we receive them from. Then they get scanned in. Then they get open, separated, and then the ballots go into the vault, and they are there until we start counting on October 24th. So the process is the same whether they come through the mail, they're hand delivered, or they come through the lockbox. We see every one of them. They are all scanned in, and that's very important because every ballot you can track along the way if you're signed up for the ballot tracking through the state, and you can watch when we do that, and you can watch when it's actually open for voting. So it's a great system. Again, it's all watched over by our supervisors, Republican and Democrat. There's no time when a ballot is alone with just one person. So I mentioned about the 24th. So let me jump into that, if you don't mind, Kristen. Under the law this year, we are now able to start the count ballots before Election Day. And that's an important piece of this legislation because of the volume. We talked a little bit about it. Commissioner Hinson mentioned that over 400,000 ballots were sent out. And as they come in, and they can come in 10,000 a day, they can come in, while we were in the office today, actually the commissioner and I think there was over 8,000 came in, and we're watching them just come through the door. I mean, it was a tremendous amount of ballots that come in every day now. So in order to make sure that all ballots are counted prior to certification on November 20th, the governor and the legislature extended this opening and counting period. What's important about that, there's another facet of this. On the 24th, we have provided and have hired people to come in, again, an R and a D, to sit and physically open these ballots under our direction. So it's a ballot processing position. It's a part-time job. They come in, they basically separate the tab, open the ballot, spread the ballot out, package them up. They go up to the counting room. That all starts on the 24th, the morning of the 24th, and will run through till we're done counting. We will not, under the new law that was put in place, we will not be looking at the results of the count until the close of polls on election evening. So at 8 o'clock, it can then be tabulated, and we'll be able to start seeing the results of all of that work. And again, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of ballots that are going to be coming through that we're going to start processing and running through the counting machines.
Commissioner, don't forget the signature. With the DVRs, we check the signatures.
Yes, right. So I did miss that. So that's very important. Thank you so much. So in that whole process, by the way, once the ballots are removed from the green envelope, then it goes through a signature verification. All of our evaluators are R&D. They sit and they evaluate every signature. Signatures that match, they go through the system. Signatures that do not match then go to the commissioners for final review, and I think you're happy about this, for curing. So then once the signatures and the decision is made that that it's not matching or it's a missing signature, it goes to cure. Comes to the commissioners, they're approved, the letters go out to the public, and they have up until 48 hours prior to certification to fill out their curing document and return it back to the Board of Elections. So that process is also not new. That was also in place for the primary.
Prior to, yes.
Yeah, so we do go through that process as well. I probably forgot it because we've done that already. I'm trying to look at the new stuff, but So that is how it works its way through the system. I can also say, and I'm pretty proud of this, and through the direction of our chairwoman, Donna Robinson Taylor, she went to the freeholders and got support to put in new equipment, high-tech equipment, high-speed sorting equipment. This will help with this volume that we've never experienced in Camden County before. And so we are very comfortable and confident that we will meet the deadlines that the state has put on us for counting the ballots because of all of these steps that have been put in place.
To kind of expand a little bit
And
on
today to work the machine. Yes.
Oh, you
And I
guys.
said, I got a chance today to work this fabulous, fast machine. It was exciting.
That's great. To tack on to the question about signatures. So what is the signature matched against, and what steps, before you get to the point of sending a cure letter out to someone, are there other, if it looks different, are you pulling other records? I think we've heard reference to that before. Are you pulling other, going into whatever system you have access to see what other signatures may be on file for that person? How often does that have to come into play?
So the first step is when our evaluators, which are Republican and Democrat, which is our staff, when they review the first review, they pull up through our state voter registration system, the SVRS, all the signatures that are on file for that voter. And they can range from, because we have their history of their signature. So we will look at every one of their signatures, give everybody that opportunity to match that signature. So it could be their registration form, which they might have put in 5 years ago. It could be their driver's license signature that they went through motor vehicle when they moved within the county somewhere. There are probably 2 or 3 others that are in that system that are their signatures. Signatures do change. We're aware of that, and we instruct our staff on ways to look at different things. But if they come to a point where they've exhausted all of the signatures that are in the state system, then they will forward those on to the commissioners for their review. Under state law, the commissioners are the ones who have to reject a signature. But it's actually not a rejection at this point, because we're giving the opportunity, thanks to the League of Women Voters, for curing that signature. And it will go back to the voter. They will have the opportunity to fill out their affidavit, new signature. That becomes their signature going forward, whatever the newest signature that they use.
Does that affidavit have to be in front of a notary, or is it?
It does not. It requires information like their driver's license number, Social Security. It has identifiers on there.
Right.
Truthfully, I've only seen the form actually once or twice. I can't remember all the exact things, but they have to fill it out completely and then sign it, and then that becomes their official signature.
Okay. And related to cures, we have a question of, I'm sorry, I'm stepping on our question person's toes, Janet, but how close to the election can a bad or missing signature be fixed? I think you said they have 48 days to fix it.
48
hours.
48 hours prior to certification.
Oh, okay. So even if, someone could walk their ballot in on election day, and it doesn't get, it may not get opened until the next day or the day after, and there's a problem, they're going to have they'll have until 48 hours before
for cure.
Right.
November
So 20th. Certifications November 20th. We're talking about the 17th or 18th. One of those days they have to be.
All right. But it doesn't matter. Like as long as your ballot is received on or before election, per the other rules,
Correct.
Then you would be given that opportunity. Okay.
Correct.
And then there was one other question about curing. If the person, so they filled out their ballot, but they skip the inner envelope and just put it into the outer envelope and send it in, is there a cure for that, or is there not is there, I'm trying to, I don't have mine in front of me. Is there even an identifier on the ballot itself that would show in the window? Like, what happens there if you get the green outer envelope and there's just a ballot inside and there's no signed certificate inner envelope? Is there any identified information there to even know?
If you're saying the green envelope and they just put their ballot in there and didn't put it in the private envelope,
Right.
we don't know who it came from then.
Because the envelope doesn't have identifying information and the
No.
ballot
It does not.
does not have identifying information.
No.
Right. So that hopefully that answers that person's question. If you want to ask a follow-up, if that didn't answer it, please go ahead. Okay. I think, let's see, looking at so we covered signatures, we covered the volume that you're working on. So can we talk a little bit about that certification date? And I know that that's like the legal date, right? But do we think that's really when we won't know throughout New Jersey, like which way the election has gone? Or is there, I think we've heard before, and this kind of ties into a conversation about provisional ballots, because we'll talk about that later as when that would come into play, but provisional ballots being counted last. But in past elections, there have been results announced prior to ballots being all counted. Is that an accurate statement that in the past, even before all provisional ballots have been tallied, you're able to call the election? In some cases, because you know how many provisional ballots are remaining and that they won't change the outcome?
Well, in most elections, once the votes start coming in from the voting districts and they get to their zones and then they get brought in and they immediately start to get counted, we're not going to get through them all. We didn't in the primary. And what will happen is they will post, our office will post, or the clerk's office will post, however many we got counted, and it'll say unofficial. It'll say unofficial right across the ballot because there's so many that come in, and it'll still be unofficial until we get through all the ballot processing. And then once the vote by mail ballots are done, then we start to count the provisionals. And it's done that way because that's how we can determine, once we scan them all in and we do the cross check, whether or not somebody voted twice. They voted vote by mail and then they voted provisionally. It's just a process that happens. They will continue, the offices will continue to post as we get more, we'll do an evening, we'll post it, we'll keep updating it. But you really won't know until the official count will be done when we certify on the 20th.
Well, the provisional ballot and the VBM are not commingled. There's no commingling of provisional ballot with the regular VBM.
So is the November 20th, so I guess to rephrase my question, is there a chance that New Jersey will not say who won New Jersey's elections until November 20th?
I wish I could answer that. I don't know. I can't speak for the other counties and their process and what they do. I am very comfortable in saying that Camden County will be ready. We will have our process in place. Our staff is, I'd match them up against any staff around the state. I can only speak for Camden County, and even that I really couldn't predict whether or not we're going to have a final count. What happens in the rest of the state, Kristen, is this is so new for the entire state that not that I want to cast any doubts on the other counties as well about their ability to get the count done, but nobody knows. Nobody knows. We've never done it at such a high volume as we have, in the history of the state. And so because of that, I don't think anybody can give you an accurate, or even your colleagues in the other chapters around the state, they could not give them an accurate assessment of whether or not they're going to be able to call it that night. So.
Okay. I think, well, I was just listening to an interview, radio interview with the I don't know, deputy or the lieutenant governor in Utah, where they've done total vote by mail for a few years now. And, you know, his message was just trying to talk the rest of the country into remaining calm. He's like, we're used to it in Utah, that we may not have Utah's results on election night, but he's like, I know a lot of places aren't going to be used to that, and it's going to be a lot of messaging to try to get people to just wait the process out. So we'll be keeping an eye on that and how we can help message with that to keep people calm there. Janet, we have a couple. Janet, there's a question about curing that's in the chat window. Do you want to pop on and ask that one?
Yeah.
I'll file the other one about where to send a ballot. I'll put that on my list for next.
Yeah, so this question comes from one of our viewers. Submitting the cure documents does or does not require to be delivered in person. If it's to be submitted 48 hours before certification on the 20th, when does the cure process within the Board of Elections end? So in other words, after the ballots are finished being counted, what is the timing for that curing? I think you already indicated earlier, Commissioner, that some of the curing actually will be started, shortly, very, very quickly.
Mhm.
But, when does that end? And also, does the cure document need to be delivered in person?
So the first point is, it does not have to be delivered in person, okay? It needs to be in our office 48 hours before certification. So if you're really pushing it, yes, I guess you would bring it in person, but it's not required to be brought in person. The curing process starts right now. As we are processing, we've already started, we've have, I don't even know what the count is, over 10,000, maybe 20,000 ballots in already. So that process is happening now, where they're doing the signature comparison, and then they will batch them and then bring them to the commissioners if there's many. Now, I haven't seen any yet. That's a good sign in my thinking, that we haven't seen many yet. And then let's just say this Friday they decide to do it, we review them, and they mail them out. They'll mail out a whole batch of curing letters. That is an ongoing process till the end of the election. So
The deadline for cure is November 18th. So the cure process is taking place now, but the deadline is November 18th.
All right, we're going to move into some of the ways that people can get their ballot into the Board of Elections. So, because there are several. So the drop boxes are fairly clear, and we've been helping to advertise the 13 different locations. And those are, you talked about, those are emptied every day, right? And they're under monitoring
Daily. Yes. Surveillance.
We have kind of this is kind of one of those, it's not meant to be a trick question to you. It's a difficult question though. So what if you see someone on a ballot, one of the cameras going and, shoving stacks and stacks of ballots in, or, trying to put something into, like, is there actually a person near the location of the drop boxes that can intervene, or do we, and I don't mean to say this to stir fears of people shoving handfuls of ballots in there, but I think it is something, when we're trying to combat fear or mistrust out in the community, these are some of the things that we're hearing. So if there were ways for us to kind of help message around this, is there any recourse, because then does the entire contents of the box for that day become jeopardized?
So it's a complicated answer, but let's start with the first part, that it's against the law. So under penalty of jail time and fines, anyone caught stuffing the ballot box, right, or a lock box, is at their own peril. So we'll start there, and you would think that would be enough to prevent people from doing that. I think everyone has seen all the press related to a North Jersey ballot box being filled with 300 ballots, which was interesting because they were all rubber band and put in the box. So, you know, they were able to track down the person that did that, and that person will be going to court and will be adjudicated accordingly. All of the boxes are under 24-hour surveillance. And the truth of the matter is, unless somebody reports it to their local official, the Board of Elections directly, somebody sees them doing that and also reports it, you know what? We really wouldn't know. And I hate to be frank about that, but that's how the system is set up. However, now we go to the cameras. If we have rough time, and this actually happened, I will say that last year we had one issue that I'm aware of. In fact, it was the only issue that we had to go back to the municipality. The police pulled up the tapes. They went through the entire thing and were to determine, and this wasn't even any kind of, what's the word I want to use, it wasn't a bad thing. It was basically somebody voted after the election was closed.
Oh.
But they put their ballot in the wrong box. Okay. But we were able to, because they actually called us, said it's in the wrong box. We actually were able to go to the tape and determine that they voted after the 8 o'clock hour. So the ballot was rejected because it wasn't voted on time. Had it been done ahead of time, you know, if they had put it in at 7 o'clock and they put it in the wrong box, because sometimes there's multiple boxes outside, I can tell you that we would have accepted it because their intent was clear. But so that's an example of how we use the cameras.
Right.
And it was something that was brought to our attention. That's why I'm kind of saying to you that it's not a perfect system. It's a very good system. I can tell you already our lockbox voting has really been successful, and a lot more than we had in the primary. But it's not a perfect system, but it's a good system.
Right. Well, and to that point, a lot of people may be using the drop boxes because of the concerns over the U.S. Postal Service. And so one question there, you know, you're hearing people write out there, oh, put 2 stamps on it so it goes as first class. There's already postage paid on your ballot. Should people be doing this extra step to try to get it there? Is that going to get it there faster?
No. So
It's already first class postage.
yes,
It's already
if you look at the
first
front,
class.
if you look
And
at
it's
the front
barcoded.
of your the green envelope that you send in, it says right on there, first class. It is already pre-coded, and all that mail goes right into the Board of Election hopper, if you will. Once the mail comes in, they scan the barcode. That's how all the mail is processed. It is 100% first class and does not require any additional postage.
None.
There was some confusion about that. I actually personally saw a form that was mailed out that said you might want to do that. It is not necessary in Camden
At
County.
all.
Again,
That's
I
correct.
can speak for Camden County. It's first class. The mail goes right in. Adding stamps will not get it to us any faster.
Got it. And so then in terms of other options, so, you know, obviously going to your post office is one. We have a question, and it's alluded to in the chat here, and it's also going to lead into the next area, which will be about being a bearer. But the first part of the question is, you know, can I just put my ballot in my mailbox on my house for the mail carrier to take? That's okay, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Normal mail.
Use any mailbox anywhere, go to any post office.
Correct.
How about, is there any difference? If you're like in an apartment or condo community that has all of the mailboxes that are all together, it's the same premise, right? That's your mail, your outgoing mail.
That's correct. You do whatever you would do with any other letter to get it through the mail system. Yes.
So getting into the bearer law. So we do understand that you can bear your own ballot and up to 3 others in this election. We're focusing on this election.
Yes.
And that you have to sign the bearer portion in the presence of the voter. They don't have to sign in front of you, but you need to have it completed and you need to sign it in their presence. So we understand that you can't bring someone's ballot to the Board of Elections and hand it over without signatures on it. It's going to be taken, rejected. There's no, because of chain of custody, you cannot bring it back. Oops, I forgot to have my husband sign it, and we're going to go do that. It's
Correct.
So we're trying to be very clear in our messaging to the community about properly filling that part out. But we've gotten some interesting questions about the bearer rule. For instance, someone who works at it's a housing community, I think was one of the examples, and they have outgoing mail, say in the front office. But it may not be, it's just kind of the outgoing mail of the office. It's not individual outgoing mail boxes of those people. Are they allowed to, all those residents allowed to put their ballots in the outgoing mail? Or, kind of, it's getting these gray areas that are very specific, but we want to be able to educate people properly, not have someone do the wrong thing. So can they, if there's a mailbox on the corner, that, a staff person shouldn't be taking 20 ballots and walking to that mailbox.
That's correct. That's correct. They should not.
Okay. Can they do that in their own outgoing mail in the building?
It's a great question. I don't know if Commissioner Henson can answer that. I would say I would advise the voter not to do that. That's their ballot, because if they don't do it themselves and they put it in a common area, they don't know what happened to that ballot.
That's correct.
They do not know if their ballot was ever mailed. So I would absolutely caution them against doing that, and make sure that they absolutely go and mail it themselves. Or
if they're unable to leave, then you would need to have an appropriate number of bearers to cover.
Correct. You could go that route as well. Yes. But I would absolutely suggest to them not to put it in a common in basket or out basket for mailing, because you've lost control of your ballot. And I think that would be, one, it's difficult to track, especially if somebody knew that you were leaning one way or the other and they didn't, they got your ballot, they could dispose of it. So I think the rule of thumb and the recommendation to anybody is, don't let go of your ballot unless you give it to someone specifically to bear your ballot and let them sign it, or put it in the mail yourself. I think that there's probably opportunities, and it may not be intentional. It could just be where somebody just misplaced the outgoing mail that day and didn't do it intentionally. But I'd be afraid to do that, quite frankly.
And just to confirm, because someone put it into the Q&A, now I feel like I want to double confirm it. So you can literally put your ballot, your ballot in your own mailbox outside your house for the regular mail to come. Yes, it does not have to be that mail person is officially carrying your ballot. You don't have to go to a post office. You don't have to go to a blue mailbox. You can.
That's correct.
That's correct.
I think one message we want to try to get across is the simple act of, a spouse saying, oh, hey, honey, did you fill out your ballot? I'm just going to grab and drop them off at the post office. Technically, you should be signing as a bearer for your spouse's ballot. For your adult, your 18-year or older child, their ballot, you shouldn't just be grabbing up. Again, you don't have the intention of doing something malicious with your own family members' ballots, I hope, but we want to stress that literally anyone putting your ballot into the mail or into the drop box or wherever, that's a bearer. So don't take it lightly, and make sure that you're getting the bearer portion filled out. Just as seriously as you should take signing your name correctly and following the steps on the ballot. So I think we're realizing there's more of that, because we don't want anyone to have doubt cast on their ballot. So that's the safest thing to do.
Agreed.
All right. So one thing we're hearing a lot of is, I want to go to the polls. Why can't I go to the polls? I'm upset I can't go to the polls. We're clear on that there's a machine at each polling location for ADA accessibility purposes. Basically, but that it's an audio audio assistance that it'll provide to the blind. Is that the primary?
It can be for both. So
Okay.
the machine is operable. It also has the ADA equipment assigned for the deaf, or and all of that's in one machine. So it depends on what they want to use.
Right. Okay. And we've heard, so there's kind of two parts of this. So one is a brief explanation of, and you've actually already touched on it. So if you try to go to your polling location, you can bring your ballot there. That's new for this election, right? That was not in place in the primary.
Correct.
You can bring your own ballot, but you cannot bring anyone else's.
That is correct.
Correct.
Right.
And actually, let me just expand a little bit on that.
Yeah.
So you touched on the one, ADA compliant. If you're disabled, you'll come in. So what will look different is there'll only be one machine in the polling place. You'll come in, you'll identify yourself. There's an affidavit that must be filled out that indicates that you are disabled and that you need to vote on the machine. At that point, the staff will call the Board of Elections. They will call the Board of Elections to make sure that you hadn't already voted by mail. Once you're cleared from that, then you can be allowed into the machine, cast your vote, and it's good. Everybody else will come in, and you have two other choices. You hand carry your own ballot. You bring it in, come up to the table. There will be a sealed box, a ballot box. It's sealed. You will take your ballot, not the poll worker. You will take your ballot and put it in the box yourself, so you can vote there. If you just want to show up at the poll because you just decided you want to vote there, many people want to vote there, you have to come in and you will go through the normal provisional ballot routine. You will fill out the forms, you will cast your vote, you will sign it, you will process it, and then you will take that and put it in the ballot box. Nobody else will see your vote. That was a question was brought up to me recently. They said, well, if I vote provisionally, everyone's going to be watching how I vote. They'll know how I vote. There'll be retaliation. I don't know where they were coming up with that information, but it is a normal provisional ballot vote that many people have done in the past. And they'll go in behind a screen, fill out their vote, seal it, envelope, sign it, the whole bit, it's done. So those are the ways you can vote at the polling location. You started this little segment with why. That is not the direction of the Camden County Board of Elections. It was the governor and legislature passed into law this process. So that's how it got started. That's the why you can't vote on the machine. And I like to be clear about that because the Board of Elections takes the heat for this. And even the clerk, the Camden County clerk, Joe Ripa's office, we take the heat for that. And all we do is process the law. We obey the law, we follow the law, and we process to keep the integrity of the election in place. So that's the why. And then the rest of it was the how to.
All right, great. I think that knowing that you've just signed an affidavit is important, because I've seen a lot of people online saying, well, how do they know if I have a disability? I'm just going to go in and say I have a disability so I can vote on the polling machine. So, all right, so have good luck getting through your fraudulent affidavit then, I guess, if you're that committed to doing it. But I think that was valuable to know, and also the checking against the existing BBM submissions that they haven't already voted. Board of Elections, you can drop off there, and your hours are clearly posted, and I think they're even posted on the ballot, right? The early
Yes.
voting hours and
Yes.
the day of the election, right?
Yes.
What happens if someone loses or ruins their ballot? Because this actually happened to me before the 2019 election, I think. I spilled water all over it, and I was worried that it wasn't going to scan right or seal properly. So I called and got a new one, and it was well ahead of time, so I wasn't worried about it. But what's the latest that you can, if something happens, you lose it, you misplace it, or you ruin it, when can you request a new one?
So you can request a new one right now if you've done something to your ballot, and that just happened. I actually had a personal friend who, I don't know how they did it, but they spilled coffee all over their ballot. So I gave them the number of the clerk's office. They called the clerk's office, and the clerk does that process. They send out a new ballot, and they handled it through them. They got their ballot, and it was very easy. They told me it was very easy. You can come in and request it as well. So up until election day, you can come into the clerk's office at our headquarters and request it if you waited that long.
Yeah.
I would think most people, from my experience, most people who get their ballot, they want to vote, there's no issue, and something happens. We just had I just talked to a gentleman the other day, and he got confused about his ballot. He thought he had already voted. Well, he voted in the primary. And he said, well, I already did that. He threw his other one. He tore it up, threw it away, because he said he got two ballots. I didn't need the second one. I said, no, that was your ballot. So I walked him through that process as well.
Right.
He's an older gentleman. And so I, hand walked him through it. I know him personally, and he got his new ballot. He was very excited to get the ballot. And so there is that process. It's in place. It's very simple. The clerk's office makes it very accommodating. So.
And Novella, could you answer the other part? Oh wait, no, and I totally lost my
The
train.
second, ballot request form is also on the county website.
There you go.
Oh, right. I think that's actually what I may have done when I did it. But how do they know, Novella, that you're not voting twice by doing that? What's the safeguard there?
There is, we check to make sure, the commissioners, we check to make sure, we check the book, and we check to make sure no one votes twice. That's very, very rare. And if it does in a case happen, then the information is sent to the legal authorities.
Okay. And does when you send a replacement ballot, is there something that like invalidates the first one that went out, or are they both still active and then you just have to check if both?
Well, they're actually one, because they use the same voter ID number, it actually cancels it out, the first one.
Yep.
Okay.
So if you're doing a replacement ballot, you're not going to be able to vote both. They won't come through.
It won't come through.
All right. All right, we have another question. It's a little bit specific, and it may stray outside of your guys' purview. So just be honest if it does. So, is there any advice that you would give to people who are in long-term care facilities? So they're essentially still quarantined, and their visitors is maybe back on like a very limited scale. But is there any advice there for how to have them safely vote without, is there any fear of influence of the staff who are there? Like usually, the family member can't come in and help someone if they have questions, because you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to be present if someone needs assistance to complete a ballot. Is there any advice there? Is that outside of your area?
Well, I think it goes back to partially the bearer conversation we just had. So there's no prohibition from a care worker at a facility to bear their ballot. We have no way of knowing whether they put undue pressure on the voter unless the voter complains. So, if a voter in a long-term care facility wants to vote, my suggestion is they make sure that they have already talked to a family member. Absent a family member, if the ballots are going to their long-term care place, they could, in fact, have a staff member bear that, to the
Sign
mailbox.
as bearer. That's correct.
So outside of that, I think, they need to beware. I would suspect that it's difficult. I know that my own family member that was in a long-term care facility didn't even vote. I mean, she just never did because she really wasn't sure. She wasn't all there to be able to vote anyway. But I think that's the case. We don't know what goes on, but if they want to vote and they have someone bear their ballot to the mailbox, then I think that vote will be counted. But I don't know whether advice to give them. Just be careful.
Difficult times here, more than other years. It's already a difficult situation for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting close to the end, so just put a note in the chat if anyone else has a question they want to do through the Q&A portion. And Janet, there is another question that came into the chat that is kind of related to that about assistance with filling out ballots.
Yeah. And this is related to somebody who might need assistance in filling out their ballot at the poll site. I think I already know the answer to the questions. Will there be assistance at the polls to fill out a ballot if it's required?
So a poll worker can certainly
Right.
assist
If requested.
If requested,
Oh, okay.
in terms of the instructions, what to do. Mm-hmm. But the poll worker will step away when the voter wants to vote. So the poll worker will not be standing with the voter and helping them fill out the circles on the provisional ballot. They need to do that on their own, but they will be and can be given instructions. Say, you go in, here's your ballot. You need to fill these out. Make sure you look at the questions. They can tell them what they're going to be doing, and then make sure it's folded and you place it in the envelope. There's a strip in the envelope, so you don't have to lick it. For the, we put those in place. It's fantastic. You peel that, put it on there, sign it, and you walk out here and deposit your ballot. They can explain that to them, but they cannot go in and help them fill that ballot out.
I'm not seeing any more questions. This has been a very serious and detail-filled webinar. We're going to stay on for a couple minutes after for anyone who wants to talk about league activities and what we're doing in the next month leading up to the election. But John or Novella, if you want to end on maybe there's a light note in here. Is there any kind of story about the weirdest ballot you ever received? Where there was a birthday card inside or someone's kid colored it in crayon. Is there any what's the weird non-controversial thing that you've seen in your time as commissioners?
Non-controversial. I will say this. I haven't seen many of those. What I've seen in my tenure have been nasty comments that people write all over their ballot. And they're just frustrated. I get it. I mean, whether it's this year, whether it was primary, whether it was even a normal, whatever normal is, election, I think those are kind of humorous. Some are a little too vulgar to discuss on an open forum, but I find that interesting. I will just leave with this, that just recently, last Friday, we had an emergency meeting. I call them emergencies because we have to refer to them that way, but they're just meetings that we have to get things done. And one of the things that happened at that meeting, which I thought was fantastic, we had a gentleman, he's 100 years old. He's a World War II veteran.
Yes.
John Patrick Welsh. And he was actually featured in Camden County's history of World War II in the Pacific. And he was a decorated war veteran, a Marine. So we were contacted through another mutual person that said, he wants to come and vote. He doesn't want to, just go to the mailbox. He wants to cast his vote. And we said, well, why don't you bring him to our office? I mean, that's the closest he's going to get to vote. He can come in and hand it. Well, coincidentally, we had Chairman Robinson Taylor with us. We had Commissioner Ambrosino, myself, and Commissioner Hinson were there, and it was wonderful to see this gentleman come in who is 100 years old, wanted to get his, as his daughter said, maybe his last vote in for president. And it was exciting to bring him in. He sat down most of the time and actually presented his ballot. He actually did a bearer, he had to sign the bearer log. And he wanted to sign it himself. He wanted to say, I'm voting. This ballot was accepted by our chairwoman. It was a wonderful, upbeat thing to see. I was so very honored to be there and to watch this great veteran, John Patrick Welsh, come in and vote after all these years, of voting. I think he said he went back before Roosevelt. I'm trying to remember. He's voted for every president.
Did he say? I think he did say
I think
Roosevelt.
he said it was Roosevelt's first term or something, and it was just exciting. So that's a happy story about elections.
That's great.
I can also say in closing that actually I couldn't be, and I'll just say this in closing. First of all, thank you to the League of Women Voters. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Anita. As I shared with you earlier, tonight is a very special night for me because I normally am in a medical collar that I got permission, thanks to the league, and I was allowed to take it off to do this presentation tonight. So I am really wonderfully happy tonight.
If you want, we can tell your doctor that the webinar ran an extra half an hour.
I can do that.
Whoa, no,
And
don't
I also
do
want to
that.
say that I'm very proud, as I know Commissioner Hinson is, and the rest of our commissioners on the call, to just say what a wonderful job our staff does. We have, and we're so very pleased, and when we're on calls from around the state, I think, who's talking to these people? Our staff is so good at what they do. They're professionals. They are above reproach in the integrity of this office. So I want to thank them also for looking out for the interest of the voters of Camden County. And actually, I would be remiss, and this is really not even a partisan issue because I'm the Republican side of the House, but I really want to thank our freeholders in Camden County because they have been an active partner with us at the Board of Elections, nonpartisan basically. It's, we need to get the job done. We need these resources. We need your help. And I just couldn't be happier that they have joined with us to make sure that our elections are as fair and transparent and open as they can be. So that's the end with all I have to say. Commissioner Hinson?
Well, I want to again thank the League of Women Voters and to thank you for partnering and being an educational partner and getting the message out. It's going to be very critical and important for this election. And again, thank you for having us. And thanks to our newest commissioner, Mr. Custodio. Very happy to be his partner. And success to all of us this election period.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I am going to conclude our recording, and commissioners, you're welcome to part for the evening. We're going to talk a little bit about league business. There's nothing, you can stay if you like, but you're also welcome to leave. So thank you again for tonight.
Okay, take care.
Thank you so much. Good night now.
Good night.